Are you serious? I'd like to start off by saying Barak Yahweh. Are you serious? Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rachakodash. Welcome. It's another live lesson. The name of this one basically is Are You Serious? And this is pretty much a response to the video that Elder Apostle Tara did. Something about remember the Israelite lady in Italy or something along those lines. I can't really remember the title, where he's reacting to a video that Captain Tazariak did. He had a call from an individual that was Italian, and you could hear from his voice that he was a Jake. He had the hope in him. He came respectfully. He said he admires Captain Tazariak in so many words, and Captain Tazariak pretty much just shitted on the dude, without offering any type of hope as far as being an Israelite foreigner, and you have Israelites out there that don't look like your typical Israelites. And this is why the Apostle John, when he saw that vision in Revelation 7, that multitude of people he didn't recognize because they were Israelites that looked like the other nations. And you have that going on a lot, because from the time when Israel was created to the time even before the nation grew really big, you had a mixture, because you had Jacob, his 4 wives, they weren't Israelites. Joseph, his wife was an Egyptian woman, so his 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, were so-called mixed, which is no such thing as mixed. You are what your father is. But the point is, when you mix your seed with women of the other nations, the children sometimes come out looking like those women. And if you have sons and they grow up and they get women of that nation, eventually what's going to happen is the Israelites are going to come out looking like those nations. This is where discernment of spirit comes in. This is why instead of just dismissing somebody, you probe them with questions to see, where they are from, or if they may be able to be an Israelite. And you could tell them, look, if you are a so-called white man, which goes back to the line of Edom or the Edomites, then there's no salvation for you. But if you just happen to be an Israelite that looks like a white man, then you are an Israelite, and you can be saved if you are part of the elect, and that covers both aspects of it. And this is something that was never embraced, has never been embraced. These camps, they go according to appearance, and the Lord don't deal with that. He told Samuel, look not upon him, dealing with King David's brother, because I have not chosen him. For the Lord looks not like man looks. Man looks on the outward appearance. The Lord looks on the inward. There's a scripture. Let me see. Just bear with me. It's in Corinthians. Just bear with me 1 second. Right, 2 Corinthians 10:7, not 1 Corinthians. It says, do you look on things after the what? Outward appearance. So these individuals are not spiritual. I'm talking about Captain Tazariak and others like him. And even Bishop Nathaniel has a problem with the lighter skinned Latin tribes, this is why he always talking about black, 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 black. I'm not saying that the ISUPK has, anything against lighter skinned, Israelites, like from the so-called Latin tribes, because you have Captain Katazak, which does not look like an Ephraimite at all, period. I'm just keeping it a buck. He looks like, he looks like he could pass for a small hat. Really, in my honest opinion, no disrespect to the brother. I'm just, stating the obvious. I'm being Mr. Obvious here. He can pass for a small hat. If he put on the small hat's garb, he can pass for them. One of them. But I know he's an Israelite just based off of his interaction with the scriptures, his ability to teach and the way he conducts himself. It's not an act. That's who he is. He is an Israelite. But he could pass for a small head. He doesn't look like a typical Israelite. So that same energy that you have in accepting him should be extended also to other Israelites out there that may not look like your typical Israelites. And supposed to be spiritual men out there. You're supposed to be able to discern that when someone, could potentially be an Israelite or not, and instead of just dismissing them, you could tell them, well, if you're an Edomite, you're going into captivity. If you're a Hamite or whatever, you're going into captivity. But if you happen to be an Israelite that looks like that particular nation, then there's hope for you, and leave it at that. So let's look at this word outward appearance. The word there's prosopon, the face, see? The front of the human head, countenance, look. So do you look at things on the outward appearance? Just because a guy looks like an Edomite or looks like Billy Goat McGruff said, if it look white, it's white. Basically, if you look like an Edomite, then you're an Edomite. No, that's not the case, because if you're reasoning that way, then if Blake Griffin's son was ever to come to one of the ISUPK camps, you would dismiss him if you didn't know who his father was. If you just rolled up, you would automatically judge him as being a so-called white man until you probe into that individual. And this is what you guys don't do. None of you. I'm talking about the ISUPK. I'm talking about the IUIC. I'm talking about HOI, all of you. Years ago, there was a Korean-looking dude that rode up on HOI, and Elder Priest Zabak was speaking, and you could clearly see that the dude was a Jake, and they pretty much just dismissed him. The title of the video was "Heathen Tries to Swagger Cleave" or something like that. Nah, man, you're missing the point of this truth. You're missing the point of the Lord, sifting the house of Israel among all these nations, and gathering them. And how is the Lord gathering them? Gathering them by his word. Let's go to Amos chapter 9 and verse 9. For lo, I will command. This is Yahweh speaking. And I will sift the house of Israel among all nations. This is why the angels have to come at the end and sever the wicked from among the just. Because you have, and this is the thing. Now, if you look black, you know what proves that with Captain Tazariak? If you look like a so-called black man, then you're accepted. Like when Sarnetta came to Captain Tazariak with that one West Indian kid. He was a kid. He was a Jake. And then Captain, he said, can he come to your Passover, to your picnic? And Captain Zariah quickly said, yeah, he could come. And then, Sarnetta said, well, he's from West Africa. Oh, no, he's a heathen. He can't come. You guys are not spiritual, man. And it's a goddamn shame. Here it is, 2025, and you guys still got that same, mentality going way back. You haven't elevated, your spiritual senses from back then. You haven't been exercised. You're all just concerned with just appearance. Appearance. You got to elevate beyond that. It says, like corn is sifted in the sieve, yet shall not the least grain fall upon the earth. And how is the Lord doing that? He's doing the sifting by his word. There's a reason why the word is there. This is the reason why you use the word as the measuring stick to who an Israelite is and who an Israelite is not. Because once you start speaking this word, the heathens are not going to gather to this. This is why you're not on the streets. You never see an actual Moabite or Ammonite or Elamite or Arab, any of them other nations. You don't see them coming up to the camp. Now you may see an actual Edomite come to the camp because their white supremacist doctrine is challenged. But you're not going to see these other nations come to the camp and inquire about the 12 tribe sign and about the Israelites, because their spirit is not drawn by the words of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. This is Baruch chapter 5, verse 5. It says, arise, O Jerusalem. Talking about the Israelites, meaning raise up out of that low state and stand on high. Why? Because we are the people of the Most High. And no matter where the Israelites are at on the planet, the Lord knows who all these Israelites are. Matter of fact, before I finish that, I have wrote some precepts down, but some of them are coming to mind now, so I'm just going to get them as they pop up. Hosea chapter 5 and verse 3, it says, I know Ephraim, and Israel is not hid from me. So no matter where the Israelites are on the planet, Yahweh B'Shem Shai knows where they are, knows who they are. Let's go from there to Acts chapter 15 and verse 18. It says, known unto the Most High are all his works from the beginning of the world. So anywhere where there are Israelites on the planet, the Lord knows where they are, no matter what they look like, no matter how tall they are, no matter how short they are, no matter how skinny they are, no matter how fat they are, no matter how light they are, no matter how dark they are, no matter what shaped head they have, whatever the case may be, the Lord knows his people on the planet. He said, matter of fact, let me see if it'll come up this way. Okay, nope, it's not going to come out like that. Okay. Let's see what the NET said. There's a scripture in Jeremiah. It's in Jeremiah. Can a woman, okay. Isaiah 49:19. Can a woman forget her baby who nurses? It's the NET. Let's go to the KJV. It says, can a woman forget her suckling child, that she should not have compassion on the son of her womb? Yea, they may forget, yet will I not forget thee. This is the Lord speaking. I will not forget thee. Behold, I have graven thee upon the palms of my hands. Thy walls are continually before me. So no matter where the Israelites are, the Lord knows where they're at. Because it's the spirit. It's not the outward appearance that matters. It's the inside, the spirit of that individual that goes back to an Israelite. But there's been a lot of mixing and mingling, and this is why you have some that are dark, some that are light, some that are medium brown, because of all the mixing and the mingling that has gone around. But even when you go back to the beginning, not every Israelite was super charcoal black, so-called. You still, even back then, you had different shades of brown. There's certain paintings of Egypt. They show the relief. They show Israelites, and they show you like a tawny / reddish kind of brown. So not every Israelite was super dark, even back then. But you guys, all you looking at is outward appearance, skin color. And the Italian dude was actually reaching out. You could hear the sincerity and concern in his spirit. And like Elder Pastor said, he was speaking from the heart. And you pretty much dismissed him. So you know what you pretty much did. Let's go to Matthew. And this is the actual meaning of that. Shutting up the kingdom of heaven to the Israelites, not to no fucking heathens like them clowns at the Genesis teach. You shut up. Look, first of all, the Pharisees weren't fucking with the Israelite foreigners, let alone the other nations. So when Yahushua spoke to them, you shut up the kingdom of heaven, he wasn't talking about no goddamn heathens. Matthew 23:13. But woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. For you neither go in yourselves, neither suffer ye them that are entering to go in. And he was there, he was waiting for the word, you know, and not saying that he would have to join the ISUPK, but you could have, you know, said, well, if your line goes back, because, you know, Italy was conquered by the Moors. You had Israelites that lived in, you know, in those regions, so-called black people that ruled all throughout Europe. If your line happens to go back to one of them, then you're an Israelite, you know. But if not, then you're an Edomite and you're going into captivity. So, you know, and that would have prompted him to maybe do more research to find out where his family line goes back to. But I believe also that he was an Israelite. You can hear it in his voice. Esau is not concerned with the Bible. Esau is not concerned with the truth. You know, the only thing that they're concerned, the only thing Esau uses the Bible for is to deceive people. That's his only concern with the scriptures, to deceive people. That's why we believe a lot of those Bible thumping Edomites in the Bible Belt are Jakes. Because, you know, Esau doesn't have that strong connection to the Bible unless he's using it to deceive people. All right. So the Lord is sifting the house of Israel among all nations. Now, how is he doing it? Baruch 5:5. Arise, O Jerusalem, and stand on high, and look about toward the east, and behold, thy children gather from the west unto the east. By what? By the word of the Holy One, rejoicing in the remembrance of the Most High. So the word is what's doing the sifting. Let the word do the talking, not your emotions and not your, you know, your lack of understanding of the Israelite foreigners, your lack, you know, of your carnal mind of looking at someone's outward appearance and automatically labeling them an Edomite, you know, or labeling them a Hamite, you know, or labeling them whatever. There's a brother up in, I believe that's Saskatchewan, you know, in Canada. That brother is super dark, you know, kind of looks a little Hamitish, you know, like if he could pass for a Hamite, you know, no disrespect to that brother, you know, I'm just trying to make a point, but he's an Israelite. He's out there teaching the word. He's out there, you know, doing his lessons, you know, he's in it. He has faith. He's out there teaching the word, but you guys would dismiss him. Oh, you're a Hamite. You're too dark. It's like amazing, man. You know, like as great as his knowledge is, and the place that it came from, as great as it was, you know, and as great as his knowledge is, you guys are still on a low level when it comes to spiritual discernment. So let's go back to Isaiah 49 and I'll start at 15 again. Can a woman forget her suckling child, that she should not have compassion on the son of her womb? Yea, they may forget, yet will I not forget thee. Behold, I have graven thee upon the palms of my hands. Thy walls are continually before me. So wherever the Israelites are, the Most High knows. Thy children shall make haste, thy destroyers and they that made thee waste shall go forth of thee. Right. So the Lord is going to separate us. And this is why the word is doing the sifting. And this was one of the things that the Lord would be doing in these times. Zephaniah chapter 1 and verse 12. And it shall come to pass at that time that I, meaning Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, how? Through his word, through his prophets, will search Jerusalem with what? With candles. The candle is what? Is another word for the light. The light is who? Yahushai. John 14:6. Yahushai said he's the light. So how is the Lord seeking these Israelites out here, Jerusalem? By his light, Yahushai, which is the word. That's the sifting mechanism. But what are you guys doing? You're shutting up the word to those that are coming in and dismissing them just because of what they look like or what region of the world they come from. When all those regions around it, you had Israelites all over the place. You don't think Israel left their seed all over the place? Down in Sicily, down in Sardinia, Corsica, you know, the ancient island of Malta, Cyprus, all them different places out there in Syria. A lot of those Syrians out there, those are Jakes, you know. In Turkey, you have a lot of those Turkish people that are really Israelites because the Ottoman Turks conquered Turkey. But they didn't kick all the Israelites out. They just took over the the heads, the nobles. Because when you conquer people, you don't just destroy all of them, you put them into captivity. In all them different regions. That's so-called Asia Minor. In Greece, you have a lot of individuals in Greece right now that are Israelites that are still eating pork and speaking the Greek language and worshiping the Greek gods like they were doing back then. But you guys would dismiss them because you're not spiritual. This is why in the parable of the sower seed, the sower said, "Look, should I go and remove them?" The Lord said, "No. Wait for the angels at the end of the world are going to do the sifting. They're going to be able to discern who the Israelites are from who the non-Israelites are. And you're going to be surprised when you see a lot of them dark-skinned, big afros, big lip, big nose individuals out there that are not Israelites, that are Edomites and other nations. And then you're going to see a whole lot of Edomite-looking, Moabite-looking, Ammonite-looking, Elamite-looking, Arab-looking, Hawaiian-looking Jakes out there that are Israelites that are going to make it. And those other individuals are not, because those are tares. But you guys don't have the spirit to discern. You haven't grown spiritually. You have a lot of knowledge, beautiful. You defend the gospel as far as the parts that you get right, which is the majority of it, but you go off on certain things. You defend the gospel, you have a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, but when it comes to spiritually discerning spirits, you lack in that. You're lean in that area. You guys got to elevate. You got to grow from that current state. You got to elevate beyond the color of skin and look at the individual spirit to discern, if they're an Israelite or not. And if you're not sure, at least just tell them, look, if you are an Israelite, you're going to be delivered. You're going to be all right. But if you're a heathen, you're going into captivity. It's just that simple. But if you're a white man, then you're an Edomite. No. Because you have Hamites that look like so-called white people. That Esau mingled their seed among them. You have Arabs that look like so-called white people that the Edomites mingled their seed upon with them. So you can't just say that because a person looks like an Edomite that they're an Edomite. Because if that's the case, then Captain Katazar would not be able to be in the ISUPK. You see? And like I said, no disrespect to that brother. I'm not trying to, come down on that. I'm just stating a fact. If you're basing things off of color and off of a person's appearance, then he wouldn't qualify in your circle. Unless you knew who his father was. And even if you have individuals out there that have a father that might be Italian or might be French or might be Scottish, or might be Irish, you can't dismiss them either. Unless you know for sure that they're Edomites. And you could tell by the spirit. Esau is not connected to the scriptures, man. They are not connected to the scriptures. And the sincerity and the plea that this man was making with you, and you just totally shitted on him. What if he's one of the elect? And me personally, when I was listening to it, I said, man, I wish he would have ran into a great millstone camp. Brothers could have, told him, well, look, if you're an Edomite, you're going into captivity, but if you're an Israelite, you're going to be all right. And you would assume it because he had that concern. He had that concern of he felt what you were saying, because he respected you personally, Captain Desariac. He felt what was being taught. So if you feel what's being taught, the scripture say the name of the Lord is dreadful among the heathen. So he's, if he's an Edomite, he's not going to be drawn to the word. He's going to be drawn away from it. You guys got to elevate, man. You got to grow spiritually. You got to come up on a more higher level of spiritual discernment. So it says, and it shall come to pass in that day that I will search Jerusalem with what candles? Which the candles is the word, is Yahushua. The word there for candles is nayar. It just says lamp, right? And the lamp, this lamp here reminds me of the virgins, the 10 virgins, Matthew 25. And some of you guys are trimming your lamps and they're not coming on. Matthew 25:1. Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. The bridegroom being Yahushua, the virgins being the workers out here in the field. You know, the prophets and the false prophets, the true prophets and the false prophets. And 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish. They that were foolish took their lamp and took no oil with them. So some of you guys don't have oil, as you know, don't have enough oil. And some of you don't have oil, period. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. While the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept, right? Because when Yahushua went back in the spirit world 2,000 years ago, you know, this truth, you know, after a while, after the apostles and them went, you know, died, went back in the spirit world, went dormant for a long period of time. And it wasn't until 1969 when it really started to resurface, reemerge, and resurrect once again. Through a man by the name of Elder Abba Bivens. And if you could receive it, that was Elijah the prophet, John the Baptist coming back, and many other great men. It says, and at midnight there was a cry made, right, because we were all slumbering, sleeping. And there was a point where we heard the cry, we heard the word of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. Right, they trimmed their lamps, meaning, you know, you lit it. You matter of fact, let's get the word trimmed. You know, you have like a little wick inside of the lamp. That wick is long and it goes down into the kerosene or whatever oil you have in there. Back in the days, you know, you're in an ancient world, it was olive oil that was used. Today you got kerosene and different other, you know, accelerants that they use. And then you would trim it, cut, you know, parts that was messed up, and then you would actually light it, right? So cosmeo, which it goes back to the word cosmetics or cosmos or cosmos. See, to put in order, arrange, make ready, prepare, to ornament, adorn, metaphorically, to embellish with honor, gain honor, to put in proper order, decorate, right, to snuff, a wick. Okay, let's look up this word, to snuff. The charred part of a candle wick, right? So in other words, you have the candle, or you have the lamp, and then the wick that's coming out of it, it could be all frayed and charred. So you would clip it, and then you would turn the knob, and the knob would pull up some more of that wick, a fresh one. So when you light it, it can, you know, it could get all the oil that's coming up out of the lamp. All right. Right, Matt, right here it says to crop the snuff of a candle by pinching or by the use of snuffers so as to brighten the light, to extinguish by, or as if this is dealing with something different. All right. So that's how you would, you know, trim the lamps so you could light it. All right. So it says, then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps, and the foolish said unto the wise, give us of your oil, for our lamps are gone out. But the wise answered, saying, not so, lest there be not enough for us and you, but go ye rather to them that sell and buy for yourselves. And that's why we tell guys, look, you got to go to the sellers and buy. You know, we don't have time to go back and, you know, and keep giving you, you know, oil. You know, we're trying to keep the oil that we have till Yahushua comes back. You know, you got to go back to the sellers and buy, you know. It says, and while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut. Afterward came also the other virgins, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. And this is what you close the door to that individual, you know, you better hope the Lord opens the door to you when that time comes. It says, but he answered and said, verily I say unto you, I know you not. Watch therefore, for you know not neither the day nor the hour when the Son of Man cometh. So you can't shut the kingdom of heaven out to someone just because of the way they look. You got to interact with them, especially if they're coming to you and asking you questions. They're not scoffing. The man wasn't scoffing. Obviously, he was sincere. You could hear by the tone in his voice, there was a lot of concern in his spirit, because he's an Israelite that looks like an Edomite, obviously, and he's concerned because he heard the message, and he heard what the message was for the Edomites, and he was like something in the spirit is having him to inquire about this, because he's an Israelite. He has to be an Israelite, and this is why he's inquiring, because he wants to know what is going to happen to him. So the best thing, if you don't know, the best thing is say, well, if you're an Edomite, you're going into slavery, captivity. You'll be destroyed here on the shores of America. But if you're an Israelite, you're going to be okay. If you're a part of the elect, you're going to be delivered with the elect here in America. But if not, you're going to be destroyed, but you'll come back through the rest of the Israelites that make it. See? That way there's some type of hope there. But you guys are not spiritual. You're about as spiritual as a wooden nickel when it comes to that aspect of the Israelite foreigners. And this has always been a problem. This has always been a problem. Even going back to One West, I had a hard time, at One West with a couple of individuals, especially one in particular, But at the end of the day, it is what it is. I had to go through that, and I understand now why, because of where we at right now. The things that we're dealing with right now, with the appearance and all of that. So let's go from there. Let me see what I got here, because I went through some of these precepts. Matter of fact, let's go to, let's see. Boom, I got that one. Let's go to Numbers 23:19 and get a couple of precepts and whatever the Spirit brings. Numbers 23:19. It says, the Most High is not a man that he should lie, neither the Son of Man that he should repent. Hath he said, and shall he not do it? Or hath he spoken, and shall he not make it good? So if the Lord said he's going to do it, he's going to do it. And this truth is going to be sure. All of the seed of Israel is going to be saved. Matter of fact, let's get two precepts. Romans 11. And then Romans 4. Let me just get Romans 4 real quick, and then we could just come right back. Okay, so let's go back here. So that's Romans 11:26. And so all Israel shall be saved, as it is written. There shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. So no matter where the Israelites are at, whether they're the elect or not, they're going to be saved in the kingdom of heaven eventually anyways. So all Israel shall be saved, because Yahushua came on the earth 2,000 years ago to shed his blood to give us forgiveness and repentance of sins, or forgiveness of sins. So when we go to Romans 4:16, it says, therefore it is of faith, that it might be by grace, to the end the promise might be sure to who? To all the seed. The whole seed, singular. Why? Because the Lord made a promise to Abraham. Just like you have an election among the Israelites, you have an election among the sons of Abraham. Abraham had 8 sons, and only one of those sons was the chosen. Isaac had 2 sons, and only one of those sons was the chosen. And there's no fault in the Most High, because it's his plan. That's what he wanted to do. That's what Yahweh Bashem Yahushua chose to do. All right? So now, let's go from there. Let's go to Isaiah 44. Matter of fact, did I finish reading this in Numbers? Yep. So let's go to Isaiah 44. I mean, I could start at the top, but I'm just going to go straight to the point. Numbers 44 and 7. And who, as I, shall call, and shall declare it, and set it in order for me, since I appointed the ancient people and the things that are coming and shall come, let them show unto them. So the Lord created the Israelites. He inherited the Israelites. He promised Abraham that his seed, he would, all the nations of the earth would be blessed, because the Israelites would eventually be scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. And the Lord is not going to go back on his promise. That's why I said that the promise is sure to the whole seed. Matter of fact, Salakia, let me just go here. So he said it's sure, just like we have a sure word of prophecy. The promise is made sure to the whole seed, not just some. Like you will have the IUIC said that if you don't repent, if you're an Israelite, you're going to go to hell. But then the Lord, that would break the Lord's word. And the Lord puts his word even above his name, because he's not going to break his word, not even for his great name's sake. So the word there for sure is bebayos. It says stable, fast, firm. Metaphorically sure, trusty. So stable, fast, firm. So the Lord is going to the promise that he made to Abraham is sure, it's stable, it's firm. All right. So let's go from there to from Isaiah 44 and 7. Let's go to Genesis 17. You guys gotta come up on another level, man, when it comes to spiritual discernment. You gotta grow. Scriptures speak about growing in this truth. You're not growing in that spiritual aspect. You got to grow. Genesis 17 and 7. And I will establish my covenant between me and these, the Heavenly Father speaking, Yahweh speaking to Abraham, and thy seed after thee in their generations. Seed is singular. Abraham had 8 seeds. Only one of those seeds was chosen for an everlasting covenant with who? The Israelites. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to be a power unto thee and to thy seed after thee. So all of the Israelites is this promises to all of the Israelites. So no matter where on the planet the Israelites are, this blessing, this promise goes on every last one of them, no matter where they're at, no matter what they look like. And you're not the one that's discerning who, or you're not the one that's choosing who is an Israelite and who's not. It's already set up in the spirit. It says, and I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, which is showing you who this seed is talking about. The promise that the Lord said to the seed right here. Who was given that land? That land that was called the land of Canaan, afterwards called the land of Israel, was given to the Israelites, not to Ishmael and not to the 6 sons of Keturah. The land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their power. Showing you that it's talking about the Israelites, and it's talking about every last Israelite out there. Because the Lord said that he's going to make them like the stars for multitude. So this is why in Isaiah 54 it says, lengthen the course, lengthen out the cords, because the earth is going to be bigger. This is why we're going to have to inhabit other planets. There's many planets out there that the Lord has that are going to be inhabited. Because the Israelites are going to be massive. Massive. So if the Israelites are going to be massive, how in the fuck is the Most High going to destroy all of the nations? Who's going to be the slaves? Who's going to be the slaves? But this is what happens. Men waxing worse and worse. And then I just say this, man. I saw that the video the Elder Pastor put up with Bishop Nathaniel. He looks very, very evil in that still. He looks super evil. And he looks drawn in, you know. I'm just saying. So let's go from there to Jeremiah 12 and 9. It says, mine heritage, which is which are who? The Israelites, is unto me as a what? A speckled bird. The birds round about are against her, meaning the other nations. Come ye, assemble all the beasts of the field, come to devour. And this is why you have people in different parts of the world that have other people that have the citizenship with them, that maybe even look like them, but they shun them. Why? Because those are Israelites. The curse of the Israelites fell upon the seed of Israel. And it said that no matter where the Israelites were at, these curses were going to pursue us. This is why them curses are a GPS for who the Israelites are. There's a heat-seeking missile on the Israelites, no matter where they're at. You have in India, you have something called the caste system. I forget the untouchables, I believe it is. Gandhi called them the untouchables, if I'm not mistaken. The elder Bishop Ayathan, goes into that history from time to time. I believe the elder Bishop Tazadakba also goes into that. The untouchables. I mean, if they happen to see this, if they want to do a lesson on that, I think that would be. I mean, they've done lessons on it, but I think that would be something good to revisit. You had the caste. I forget what it was called. The untouchables, I believe they were called. And these were outcasts from among the Elam. These are Jakes, and they look like them, but it's a spiritual thing, and you have to be spiritual to be able to discern it. And that's why the nations are against us, because it's something that the Lord already set up that way. Just like there's a strong animosity between Jacob and Esau. Now, when we look up this word speckled bird, right? The word speckled is the word tazabawai. Tazabawai, right? Tazabawai here, it says colored, variegated, speckled, right? When you look up this word variegated, this is where you get the word variety. The word variegated or variety means exhibiting different colors, especially as irregular patches or streaks. See, exhibiting different colors. And even when you go to the root word tazabai, right? It says here, dye stuff, something dyed, colored cloth. Here it says to dip into coloring fluid. So the Israelites are an array of colors. Down here, something dyed a versi-colored garment. Versi is versatile. Versicolor. That right here in the Strong's definition, from an unused root meaning to dip into coloring fluid, a dye, diverse colors. See, diverse. So a diversity. You're going to have a diversity of Israelites looking like the other nations. Speckled bird. This is why in the book of Revelation, chapter 7 and verse 9, after the 144,000, this multitude of that came through the tribulation are Israelites that don't look like your typical Israelites. You guys got to grow spiritually. Revelation 7:9. After this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and peoples and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. And like Elder Pastor said, it's true. This chapter and verse is best explained by going to Revelation chapter 5 and 9, because it's telling you who these people are. Revelation 5 and 9. And they took and they sung a new song saying, thou art worthy to take the book and to open the seals thereof, for thou wast slain and has redeemed us or bought us back. The nations were never part of the Most High. Unto the Most High by thy blood out of every kindred and tongue and people and nation, and has made us unto our power kings and priests. The only ones given that promise were the Israelites, and we shall reign on the earth. This is why it says here that great multitude of all nations and kindreds and peoples and tongues, this great multitude was taken out from among all of these different nations because they're Israelites, and they didn't look like your typical Israelites. Stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands, and cried with a loud voice, saying, Salvation to our power, which sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb. And all the angels stood round about the throne and about the elders and the four beasts, and fell before the throne on their faces and worshipped the Most High, saying, So be true, blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might be unto our power forever and ever. So be true. And one of the elders answered, saying unto me, What are these which are arrayed in white robes? He was messing with the apostle John. And whence came they? And I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest. He gave a safe answer. And he said to me, These are they which came out of great tribulation, and have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. So these are they that came to what? Great tribulation. Let's go to Daniel. Who are the ones that's going to come through that great tribulation? The Israelites. So obviously they didn't look like the typical Israelites. Otherwise, the Apostle John said, Oh, those are Israelites. Daniel 12:1. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince who standeth for the children of that people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. This is that great tribulation we're reading of in Daniel chapter 7. And at that time, thy people, the Israelites, shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. So these Israelites here are part of the elect of the nation of Israel that didn't look like a typical Israelites. But their spirit in them goes back to an Israelite, whether it's a so-called Negro, or so-called Latino, so-called Native American Indian. See? So this is how you rightly divide the word of truth. You know, you don't just, well, you know, you look like Edomite, you're an Edomite. No. You don't know that. So Revelation 7:14, and I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest, and he said to me, These are they which came out of great tribulation, and have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. So I'm gonna leave you with this last precept in the book of Hosea, chapter 7 and verse 8. It says, Ephraim, he hath mixed himself among the people. Ephraim is a cake not turned. This is why you have dark-skinned Ephraimites, which a lot of them are Judites, but even some of them dark ones are actually Ephraim. You see? Because, you know, it depends on if your father goes back to the Taínos, the Arawaks, or if they go back to Judah, or if they go back to Esau. See? And not every person that's in Spain, because you're a Spaniard, not every person that's in Spain is an Edomite. You have a lot of Jakes in Spain. You have a lot of Jakes in Portugal. You guys got to elevate on a higher plateau as far as, you know, your history is concerned, you know, with these different regions over there in so-called Europe. And what happened? You'll talk about the Byzantine Empire. You talk about the blacks that ruled, you know, Spain and Portugal and all those areas. But then if you come from Spain, you're a Spaniard. If you come from Italy, you're Italian, you're Edomite. You guys got to grow, man. Let's look up this word mixed. Mixed himself. The word is balal. And it says to mix, mingle, confuse, confound, right? To mix oneself among others. See? And what happened in the mixing among others? They started having sex with their women. And the babies didn't come out like it. You know, this is why Blake Griffin's father that laid down with a Edomite looking woman, she could be a Jake, had Blake. Blake don't look, you know, he looks a whole lot lighter. He looks like a ginger. He could pass for a ginger. Then he got with a so-called white looking woman, which could be an Israelite also. And his son came out looking like a straight up white boy. But that white boy, that white looking boy, is actually an Israelite, an actual Levite that looks like a so-called white man because of his grandfather and his father. You guys got to elevate on a higher plateau, man. You got to get your history down. When it comes to these regions over there in so-called Europe, Greece, and all of that. So are you serious with that? So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. To the next time I say, Shalom.